Molly, what do you make of this idea that Zelensky might have somebody in his ear or that it was an intentional sabotage? Molly Hemingway.
Well, it was so weird to watch him go into this meeting that was ostensibly to get much further down the road of a peace agreement and see him just being unbelievably hostile. And he had met with all these different members of Congress prior to the meeting. And as everything blew up, they started talking about how either A, they had counseled him before he went into the meeting, or in some cases, like Lindsey Graham said, I counseled him not to behave the way that he behaved. So you realize that there was a lot of strategy going into why he was operating the way he was and the kind of information he was getting. You even saw the New York Post the day before the meeting was saying, Zelensky, you should take your case directly to the American people because Trump's position isn't popular. Now, I think they were wrong, but the point is Zelensky was getting a lot of advice to behave at least somewhat in the manner that he ended up behaving.
Yeah, but I'm trying to understand, though, what does Zelensky want by antagonizing President Trump? What is the end game here?
Now, it's a little tricky because you wouldn't say that a man whose country has been destroyed by war wants war. But there are aspects where to ending this war that would maybe not go well for Zelensky. He has not had democratic elections for some period of time. It was part of the martial law that has also seen the shuttering of opposition newspapers, opposition political parties, religious groups that are not aligned with his political preference, and there's no election to hold him democratically accountable. I think he legitimately is concerned that if the elections were held, that he might not win again, and that this might raise questions about what his life is going to be like once the peace is established. And so he's seeking, and his allies in America and throughout the world are seeking U.S. security guarantees. And it's a nice euphemism, but what does it mean? Well, ultimately, a security guarantee means nothing unless it means U.S. troops willing to go on the ground to defend Ukraine in this proxy war. Well, that's not what the American people want. It is absolutely what the media complex wants, what the neocons in our country want, and what Europe wants. They want us to put our troops and our money to back this security guarantee. And so he thought that he had a shot to get that, and that's what blowing up the meeting was all about.
Okay, let's play cut one here. This is Lindsey Graham. You mentioned this cut. Play cut one.
I told him this morning, I told him, don't take the bait. Don't let the media or anybody else get you into an argument with President Trump. What he's doing today is resetting the relationship. You should be grateful. Now, whether or not we can put this back together, I don't know. But Zelensky's going to be on your network tonight. If I were him, I would profusely apologize to the way he treated our president and the vice president in the Oval Office and show a little bit of gratitude for what the American people have done.
Now, I'm trying to understand all this. So, first of all, Zelensky did not apologize. I mean, Lindsey Graham is chief neocon. I mean, he is one of the chieftains. He's one of the grand poobahs of the warmongering machine. He, alongside of two or three others, design all of these failed conflicts and stay up late at night thinking of what other countries to invade. Why is it that Lindsey Graham was so quick to cast Zelensky aside? Do you think that Lindsey felt almost personally violated because Zelensky didn't receive the coaching?
Well, first of all, that's the quote that I think is so interesting, where he says, don't take the bait where these other people are telling you to be hostile, right? I mean, it's interesting. He's just saying what everyone can see, that he's getting coaching to be this way. I think Lindsey Graham cares more about continuing the war in Ukraine than he cares about Zelensky. So when he saw Zelensky completely implode in this Oval Office meeting, he realized that the best chance for the war to continue is to get rid of Zelensky. That way, if someone else comes in, you get a fresh start and you can, continue negotiations, as opposed to what happened that we all saw if you watched the full, 50 minutes of this meeting of Zelensky just seeming almost crazed in his hostility toward Trump and Vance.
So I want to now get into your, let's say, back and forth with Susan Rice. What happened here? Explain it to our audience, and what did you learn?
Well, it was just interesting. Immediately after everything blows up, Susan Rice goes on CNN to talk about the situation, and she says a lot of stuff that's really interesting. She opposes the peace deal that would be good for the United States. That alone is kind of shocking to see a former national security advisor openly advocating against a peace deal that's in the United States' interest. She also reveals all this knowledge of what was in the mineral agreement. She kind of is suggesting she has deep insider knowledge about what was the agreement that Trump wanted Zelensky to sign about the minerals in Ukraine that could help repay us for all the money that taxpayers have spent there. She had the same talking point as Zelensky about concrete security agreements, meaning having U.S. troops on the ground if they can make that happen. And then she just like mischaracterized Trump's behavior. She was so immediate with this that you could say, okay, well, maybe this is just Democrat talking points, and it really could be. But given that it's Susan Rice, and given how she runs operations, information operations, which she did, with the Benghazi disaster, where she immediately went out and lied and said that the attack on 9/11 was not part of Islamist attacks on the US. It was just an organic protest about a YouTube video that an American had made. And then she proceeded to try to criminalize the First Amendment and all that. She also did the Russia collusion hoax. She was in that very tiny meeting at the end of the Obama administration where they kind of hatched what to do with the Russia collusion.
That's right.
So that's kind of like what she does. She was UN ambassador. She was national security advisor. So seeing that she was out there immediately with this information operation, it looked like she might be knowledgeable of the effort to get Zelensky to do what he did, or, and so I just think that was interesting.
We haven't heard from Susan Rice in quite some time, so it's rather odd that it's coming out now. What would you say is a probable outcome here, Molly? And in closing, what do you make of the Europeans now talking a big game that they're going to defend Ukraine?
Well, it is a fraught situation. And it's, by the way, Ukraine has been a fraught situation since the implosion of the Soviet Union back during the George H.W. Bush administration. It's something we have to be very careful of. So I don't know how things are going to end. I do think Zelensky should stop taking advice from the people who are telling him to be hostile toward American voters and Trump. But a good outcome would be if the European countries really did start spending more on their own defense and did more to back their claims that Russia is a serious threat. A great outcome would be an end to this war on the best possible grounding for Ukraine. I think Trump still wants that. I hope he doesn't want it at the expense of American interest, but hopefully we'll get it there. I don't know if Zelensky will survive being president of his country for much longer.